Join us now as we go live to Venezuela, where the National Assembly is holding an ordinary session.
The United Nations for the states to be respected in their principles that have to be respected, principles that can't be discussed or not negotiable, like the determination, sovereignty, the equality, the right to resolve the conflicts in a peaceful way. All, of course, in that article number 2 of the UN Charter that I want to read a part of to pinpoint. The article number 2 of the UN Charter says that the organization and its members, in the consequence of the purposes announced in article number 1, will do as said. Following the principles, number 4, it says the next thing: all of the members, which means all of the countries that subscribe the UN Charter, all of the members will abstain in their international relationships from recurring to threats or the use of force against the territorial integrity or the political independence of any state or in any of other form incompatible with the purposes of the UN. We have seen how it has been incremented over 1,000 sanctions that the US people have against the Venezuelan people, that at the beginning they tried to give a shade those who drag themselves at the feet of the US and don't deserve to have the Venezuelan nationality. They start to say that those sanctions were against the government, against the representatives of the government, against the President Nicolas Maduro, and little by little they have been facing with the reality that the sanctions affected all of the people in Venezuela. That reality that is raw has also carried for the President Nicolas Maduro to locate the national consensus, and there our President of the Assembly has also had an important part. It has managed an understanding with some parts of the opposition that today, like the Venezuelan people, reject the aggressions. In April of this year, the United States imposed sanctions that, of course, stop other nations, because not only what the United States has done against a country here in the continent, it doesn't only affect that country like it's being affected with the threat of the military deployment on the Caribbean. It's not only affected Venezuela, it's a threat against all of the sovereign states of the Caribbean, Latin America, and like that, different voices have assumed it, including the Conference of the Bishops of the Caribbean. They have asked for peace and to demilitarize the Caribbean, to respect the self-determination and the sovereignty of the people. All of the people of the world that want peace, they see the danger that is on the Latin American continent, but there's some people who still don't see it, or they don't want to see it, or they are so bending their knees to the interest of the US that when the United States says something, they will run to follow, even when that violates the international law which they are obligated to. Like that, I want to express that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Miss Kamla Persad-Bissesar, I don't know how to pronounce her name correctly, but everyone knows she's the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, of that country that is an island with which Venezuela has many relationships of brotherhood, of cooperation, of solidarity, of affection. I want to know if there's any Venezuelan, especially Venezuelan from the center of the country and from our eastern coast, that hasn't had a friendship relationship or even familial ones with people from Trinidad. We love the people of Trinidad. We share with them. They are part, with their population that is around 1.5 million of people. They have an important population of immigrants here in Venezuela, and those immigrants, they are the witnesses of how Venezuela has received them and loves them, as Venezuela does with all the migrants from the different nationalities. It turns out that in aggression to that humble people comes Miss Kamla. The President of the Assembly pronounces her name better, Kamla Persad-Bissesar. She comes out very fast. She came out on August with an act that was very undignified, because it is good when someone who is a governor answers to another calling from a different government in their relationships, but she gave her opinion without it being asked. That was what happened on April, because she offered her territory to the United States without the US even asking for it. She offered her territory too, and then she incorporates an element. She says, if Venezuela dares to attack another country that has nothing to do with the tale that they're deployed in the Caribbean because they're fighting against drug trafficking. It has nothing to do with that. So she incorporates a new element as a good follower. She adds the element that if the US needs the territory to act against Venezuela, I offer it to you without any contemplation. I have no doubts. She said that in that way. On October 9th, from the acts of the United States affecting all of the countries of the continent, in August of this year, she offered her territory. The government of the United States, and you can look that up in the news, authorized Trinidad and Tobago to continue exploiting the gas space called Dragon, which is in Venezuelan territory, and with it Venezuela has an agreement that was being developed from 2015 for 10 years. On February of this year, it was extended for another 5 years, but before the acts of this lady Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago in favor of those who are threatening our homeland, well, that situation needs to be checked, as the President of the Republic ordained to seize that agreement with Trinidad and Tobago. Who loses here? Miss Kamla, you're affecting your own people, a people that the Venezuelan people loves. You do not care about your people the same way you didn't care that military deployment in the Caribbean murdered 2 citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. The spokesperson of the NGO Fishermen and Friends of the Sea of Trinidad and Tobago, Gary Abus, he confirmed that 2 Trinidadian men died in the attack that the United States carried against a little ship in international waters that were close to Venezuela. She did not care, and those are extrajudicial executions that violate international law, that constitute crimes against humanity. So that lady is taking Trinidad and Tobago with her acts to the abyss, because all of the countries of CARICOM, all of the countries of the Caribbean, all of the countries of Latin America are rejecting that military deployment because they know the threat that it represents. But this lady doesn't see it. She prefers to drag herself. She prefers to attempt against the sovereignty of the people of Trinidad and Tobago and put them through necessities to suffer, because the people of Trinidad and Tobago needs Venezuelan gas. But if the United States forces them, then they will start attacking the country. And she waited, this lady, for Donald Trump to authorize her. What sovereignty, what is the concept that this lady, Kamla, follows to exercise the sovereignty of a country? Or does she doesn't know the meaning of the position that she holds in the country as the prime minister of that country that has borders with us? For these reasons and many others, I have asked for the right to speak to present President and deputies the following agreement, an agreement for our National Assembly to declare the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago as a non-grata person for the reasons that were previously mentioned for her acts, and I ask for your authorization to proceed and read the agreement. Go ahead, Deputy. Thank you. National Assembly of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. I agree to declare a non-grata person the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Kamla Persad-Bissesar, considering that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has taken a posture that is warmongering in the region of Latin America and the Caribbean by authorizing the CIA and the South Command of the United States of America to the dangerous doing of military exercises in the territory of Trinidad and Tobago, an action that is a hostile provocation against the Republic of Venezuela and a very serious threat to the peace in the Caribbean. This renowned to the sovereignty by the part of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago represents a flagrant violation of the principles of peaceful coexistence and respect to the sovereignty of the state, and it goes against the spirit of brotherhood and cooperation that should prevail in the community of the Caribbean and all of Latin America. Such actions deployed to the warmongering agenda of the United States not only threatens the stability of the Republic of Venezuela in the economic and social spheres, but is also a great offense to the national honor of the people of Trinidad and Tobago and its historical vocation to maintain peaceful and harmonic relationships with Venezuela. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago pretends to implode CARICOM and has broken the principles that demand this bloc of countries, including those that protect the countries of the Caribbean against all of the threats of use of threat, going against the proclamation of the select as Latin America being a peaceful zone free of nuclear arms. It is unheard of that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, after seeing that their own people has been victim to the acts of the U.S. by extrajudicial executions of innocent fishermen, and still opens the country to the same criminal foreign forces against the will of the Trinidad and Tobago people. It agrees first to declare as persona-non-grata the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago because of being part of a systematic plan against the sovereignty and the peace and self-determination of the Venezuelan people. Second, to repudiate in the most energical terms the posture that was assumed by the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago by constituting an incitation to war and violence in the region of the Caribbean, a conduct that is incompatible with international law and the peace culture that promotes our region. Third, to back all of the national measures done by the executive, like the denounce of the agreements between Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago, and also the suspension of all of the agreements on energy subscribed with that country as an answer to the submission of the government of that region to an aggression plan against our country. Fourth, we call through diplomatic channels to the Trinidad and Tobago government to publicly and categorically dislocate themselves from the provocations in the Caribbean region and all false flag activities in the area, in an effort to preserve the relationships that have been between both nations, faith to continue denouncing and exhausting all of the national, international instances on the great threats that are in the Caribbean by the military presence of U.S. ships that have done extrajudicial executions of citizens of the region, going against international law and the minimum guarantees of the right to defense, the presumption of innocence and due process. 6. To publish the present agreement in the official Gazette of the Republic and defend itself in deeply with consequence of the law of the country, given and signed in the headquarters of the National Assembly in Caracas on 28th of October, year 2015, of the independence and 26th year of the Bolivarian